This is Boomer Life Lessons and Stories, and I am Ron Cross, your host. We're going to be talking today about you want to change your life? Avoid the gumption traps. I suppose the reason why that topic came to my mind is that we're approaching the end of the year, and all of our thoughts are now turning toward the new year. And when they do, we start thinking about what do we need to do and what do we need to do differently. Every year at the beginning of the year, in January, probably the first week or so of January, my wife and I, we hold a family planning session where we plan what our initiatives are going to be, our charities, what we're going to invest in, and that sort of thing. And then throughout the year, we have 2 or 3 other meetings to kind of check how we're doing on the plan. So it is a plan, it's an executable plan. So the things that kind of prevent us from achieving on that plan oftentimes are gumption traps. And literally, gumption traps can be self-fulfilling type prophecies. And we're going to get into that in just a moment. But I think perhaps before we start talking about gumption traps, we need to think about and kind of investigate what is gumption, and then literally, what's the definition of gumption trap? And if we can wrap our minds around this thought, perhaps it'll be helpful to us in terms of avoiding these sorts of things in terms of gumption traps. So to that end, we're going to be talking about 5 different gumption traps. So what is gumption? Well, go to a dictionary and look it up. You can look it up as well as I can. And I found one definition that really speaks very loudly to me. It says gumption: shrewd or spirited initiative and resourcefulness. Notice the last part was initiative and resourcefulness. That is a conjunction. It's and. For the statement to be true, both parts must be true. So for this definition, for you to actually have gumption, you must have both initiative and resourcefulness. Now, why is that important? Well, if you have initiative without resourcefulness, having access to resources and making things happen, you're going to fail. So if you have initiative but no resourcefulness, you're going to be kind of wandering about trying to find your way and making things happen, and you're not going to be able to do so. Well, what is not having initiative but having resourcefulness? Well, that's never getting started. If you're a very resourceful person, and when you do get started, you can make things happen. But without initiative, nothing ever gets started. And so you fail. Okay? So gumption is the ability to make things happen through initiative and resourcefulness. That's either at the individual level or at the business level. So that definition sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Gumption. But actually, in around 74 to 76, I read a book. Obviously, I read lots of books, but this book, I think, is kind of a cult hit, a cult favorite. Not that it's part of a cult, it's just it has a following, and the people that have read the book and try to practice some of the premises in the book are very devout in doing so. This is Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert Pirsig. And he talks about gumption, and he talks about gumption traps. His definition of gumption is sort of poetic in my mind. And maybe it's because, I worked as an engineer for most of my career, engineering manager, director, etc. Pirsig said that gumption is the psychic gasoline that keeps the whole thing going. In other words, that's what that gives you the drive, the initiative to go after and make things happen. Of course, it requires resources. I think about a friend of mine back in Orlando. He was going to build his house by himself. Very resourceful guy, very unique, and a great critical thinker. And so he had to clear his land. He bought the land, had to go and get it cleared. So he started talking to contractors about clearing his land. And goodness, they were telling him it was going to cost him $8,000 to $10,000. And this was probably, I don't know, in the early 90s. And he thought, nah, I'm not going to pay $8,000 to $10,000 to have my land cleared and leveled. That's just way too much. So he started shopping around, and he found a bulldozer. and the bulldozer was $5,000. So he went out and paid the $5,000 for the bulldozer. It was in working order. And he went off and leveled his land and got it ready to build his house, lay the foundation. And he used that bulldozer throughout the time that he was building his house. And when he finished building his house, he ended up selling the bulldozer for about $7,000 or $8,000. Now, if that's not one taking the initiative and being resourceful and getting things done, that's a lot of gumption. I don't know what is, right? So these are examples. There's other examples I can give you that either I've taken or some of my associates and friends have taken throughout their career and their personal life. So we pretty much have the idea about what gumption is. So what is a gumption trap? Well, Devin Martin says in his article, and I think it's a great definition, by the way. His article is The Truth About Gumption Traps, okay? So what he says is a gumption trap is something which saps your energy, undermines your faith, and I would say undermines your faith in yourself, or otherwise causes you to falter in your drive towards completing a project. So let me read it again to you one more time. A gumption trap is something which saps your energy, undermines your faith, or otherwise causes you to falter in your drive towards completing a project. A very smart man. I think that's a very good definition of a gumption trap. And when it causes you to falter or lose faith, I believe that means losing faith in yourself, not believing in yourself. Okay? So in order to avoid the gumption traps and change your life, which is the title of this episode, you want to change your life? Avoid the gumption traps. So how are you going to do that? Well, there's 5 things that I've come up with that are gumption traps. And perhaps 80% of resolving the problem with gumption traps is being aware of them, right? As long as I'm aware of it, I can take action to avoid it, right? Well, the first one then is that self-defeating narrative that one may tell themselves. They may say, I can't do that, I'm not smart enough. Or, I just don't have the follow through to make it happen. Or, wow, that's well beyond the energy and the time I wanted to spend on it, right? Here's the thing. There is the definition of insanity, and I think it's a great definition. Insanity is, by definition, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, that's what a gumption trap is. You do the same thing over and over again without doing anything to change yourself, improve yourself, your knowledge, your awareness, your skill set, right? And you're always going to fall into these ruts of activity that lead you down the same garden path. So as long as you don't do anything different, you're going to follow through those same worn out pathways and they'll lead to the same results. So you tell yourselves these self-defeating narratives. I'm not smart enough. I don't have the energy. I don't think I'm capable. Well, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You've got to change your mindset. You got to begin to think, I am capable. You know, I teach at one of the great universities here in the state of Texas, and I tell my students, you are more capable than you think you are. Because oftentimes the students come to me with problems and they're telling themselves, it's too hard. I can't get started because it's too hard. I'm not capable. But then I tell them, well, no. Every point in my career where I've met a challenge, I've told myself as my mantra, I am more capable than I think I am. And I tell my students, and you know what? I was right. I always found a way to be successful. And so can you. So one of the gumption traps to avoid is those self-fulfilling prophecies that are always saying you can't, you can't, you can't because, okay? You've seen them, and I'm sure that you've said them to yourself. I have in the past, and when I did, I recognized it was a gumption trap. So I avoided it, and I did something different. I avoided the insanity of doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. What about number 2, a gumption trap? Well, how about your bad habits? If you enjoying time off and you never take the opportunity to learn something new so that you can improve your lot in life, you can add value to the family, you can help yourself become more uh, in the future than you are today, to be something more in the future than you are today. You don't do that by recreating all the time. It takes hard work, right? So you have to avoid those bad habits that would misdirect you and lead you down a different pathway that really is not adding value. You may enjoy the moment, but you're not adding value that you can reap as a harvest at some point in the future. So doing something different, doing something that's challenging, that will add new skills or new insights or new knowledge, new capability, that will allow you to avoid the bad habits and add value to your career and to your personal life and to your family. So avoid the bad habits, whatever they are. If perhaps you enjoy a hobby, I had a friend that loved to play chess, literally. And his wife told us one time that she was a chess widow. Now, I played competitive chess, but I was not causing my wife to be a chess widow. She and I stayed engaged with one another. I limited my chess playing activity, but my friend was playing it 7 days a week. And if there was an eighth day, he would have played it 8 days. She said, we never do anything. He's always playing chess, or he's always having friends over to play chess. Believe me, I love the game of chess. But when it becomes an obsession and it's not your career, it's not your job, then you have to think about doing something differently. How are you going to improve yourself? Well, you avoid the bad habits. You avoid obsessing over one thing that's not going to add value when you can do something else that will add lots of value going into the future. That was number two. Number three, not thinking critically. You know, the definition for Gumption Trap was not being able to complete a project, right? It included that. Well, not thinking critically is one of those bad habits that will prevent you from achieving the things that you'd like to achieve in your life. You have to think about thinking what it is going to take in terms of resources, time, and effort in order to achieve that end state that I want to be in, that better career, that advanced position, perhaps more money to invest to help your family, right? Or to pay for your children's college education. So, what do you have to do? You have to visualize that future state, and then you have to create a plan, a sequence of steps that when you execute to those steps, that will allow you to achieve that goal, you will get there. But if you don't think critically about those things that might impinge upon you as you're executing to the plan, and you don't make accommodations to do something different when those things impinge negatively on your plan, you'll never get to your goal. Or if you never start in working through those sequence of activities, those steps in your plan. So you got to think critically. What is your goal? Where do you need to be? What steps do you need to take? And then how do you get there, right? It's definitely the journey that adds the value. You may not achieve the goal, the end state, but in striving to it, executing to the plan, you're going to learn a lot that will be beneficial to you and to your family, that will add value to you and your career and to your family. So that was number three, not thinking critically. Number four. Number four really helps you do number three. So perhaps number four should have been number three, but these things work together and they're intermingled and entangled with one another. So what is number four? Visualizing and making real your goal, that end state. If you never believe that end state, which is some point out in the future, is real, you're not going to spend the time and effort, the energy, and perhaps the money to get there. So you have to believe in yourself, and you have to believe that you can achieve, and you have to crystallize and visualize and make real that goal that you're working toward. And only by making it real will you make it reality. Now think about that. You make a goal real by believing in yourself, creating a plan to execute, and visualizing yourself in that end state. You laser focus on what it is you want to achieve. It's not a broad front of things you want to do. That waters everything down, and pretty soon you'll never get there because you're trying to push a broad front forward. It's a strategic look at the future with one thing in mind to achieve, and all your energies are laser focused on that one thing so that you can achieve it by making it real and turning it into reality. So that's so very, very important. That was number 4. So what's number 5? Well, number 5 is if you're not willing to risk failure. That's Gumption Trap number 5. A lot of people never get started because they're afraid of failure. A lot of people never get started because they're afraid of the challenge. They don't want to do it because it's too challenging and they may not succeed. And I'm all about success. You know, I hate to say it, but there are times when I think we dwell on rewarding people just doing their job. You know, you get paid every week. That's your reward for doing your job. When you achieve something great, companies recognize that, and they do it in many different ways. They do it in great increases in your annual salary. They do it in bonuses. They do it in stock grants, that sort of thing. But they don't give it out to everybody. They give it out to those that add the most value to the company. So when you try to push yourself to achieve many things on a broad front, you're going to water it down and you're not going to be able to achieve, and you're going to fail on many different parts of that front. And it's going to disappoint you, and it's going to discourage you, and it's going to allow you to fall into that gumption trap number 5. You're not willing to risk failure because you've risked it so many times before and it became reality. Well, change your habits. Change how you look at the future by thinking critically, right? Without thinking critically, you're setting yourself up for failure or for surprises. Without making a plan, you have nothing to execute to. You're depending upon the whims of the world, right? By not crystallizing that goal, you have nothing to strive toward. You don't have a compass pointing you in the direction of success, right? So when you do these things, these 5 gumption traps, you're going to ensure yourself that you're going to fail. So let's recap. Number 1, gumption trap, self-defeating narrative. I can't do that, it's too hard. It's beyond my capability. Turn it around and say, I am more capable than I think I am. Number 2, bad habits. Don't fall into that definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Do something that makes you do something out of the lane of normal experience, that makes you do things differently. They may be harder, but they're going to make you think differently, right? Think critically when you do that. That's number 3. Don't fall prey to not thinking critically and analyzing things as you put your plan together and what those forces that might impinge upon each step of your plan that would prevent you from achieving those interim successes, right? So don't allow yourself to be lazy. Think critically always in all things, and you will be successful. You'll avoid that number 3 gumption trap of not thinking critically. Number 4, not crystallizing the goal. You avoid that by knowing what it is you want to achieve, marshal your resources, make a plan, and you make that dream a reality by executing to the plan because you're laser focused on the goal. Everything that you do is striving toward that goal, not that broad front that will water down your resources, drain your initiative, and cause you to have disappointment after disappointment. And last, again, number 5, not willing to risk failure. You think about it. You think about the entrepreneurs. You know, depending on the study that you read, the successful entrepreneurs who start up multi-million-dollar businesses, they failed 2 or 3 times. What that means is some studies say before they hit it, they failed 2 times before the 3rd time they hit it. or they failed 3 times before the 4th time they stood up a company that really created value to their customers and to them. Why did they do that? They were willing to risk everything, even failure, in order to achieve the end state, their dream, their goal, their success. So if you want to make a difference in your life in 2021, you want to do things differently by avoiding these 5 gumption traps. And my friend, if you do that, you're going to have great success. You can't help but having success. And I'm going to be on the sidelines saying, I knew them when, right? And with that, my friends, be careful out there. You take care of your family, and all the best.